Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to take a seemingly trivial UI element that you literally see absolutely everywhere and use it to master senior level system design. I'm honestly so excited to share this with you because it's going to completely change how you look at the apps you use every single day.
Think about when you open WhatsApp, Slack, Discord, or LinkedIn. You'll always find it right next to a user's name, that tiny colored dot. Green means online, gray means offline. It looks like a single bit of information, right? Just a simple true or false. But what does it actually cost to engineer that single green pixel at a billion user scale?
Because here's the thing, presence isn't just cosmetic. That little dot drives massive core product behaviors. It builds trust. I mean, you absolutely need to know if your driver is actually active on a ride-sharing app. It drives routing decisions for customer support. It saves billions, literally billions, of unnecessary push notifications by keeping messages in-app when users are active. For B2B platforms, it even dictates billing and SLAs. If your present system is flaky, you erode user trust instantly. So here's our game plan for today's explainer. We'll start by looking at why this dot is so deceptive, sketch out a day zero architecture, dive into the power of absence, figure out how to scale our storage, and finally, look at exactly how this whole thing might crash and burn. All right, let's jump right into our first topic. Why does this deceptively simple green dot actually matter so much? Well, the online dot is not just a feature, it's a foundational pattern. If you can master this one specific problem, you unlock a mental model that applies to dozens of other systems. We're talking distributed failure detection, IoT device liveness, gaming matchmaking, BGP hold timers, and even Kubernetes node readiness. The architecture behind this little dot is basically the backbone of modern backend engineering. Moving on to our day zero architecture, let's figure out the baseline we need to establish minimum viable correctness. And honestly, there is a massive mindset upgrade we need to talk about here. Junior engineers, they tend to use templates, but senior engineers, they sketch. You don't just start with sharding, Kafka, and geo-distribution right out of the gate. That's premature scaling. You want to start broad, kind of like a cartoonist drawing a rough rectangle before adding the fine details. You evolve, you find the bottlenecks, and you iterate. Every new system should be a fresh sketch. So picture our sketch here. It's the classic three-box diagram. Clients talk to a stateless API service, which then talks to a key-value database. Pretty standard, right? But the devil is always in the details. Before we even think about picking the database, we have to define the access pattern. The UI almost never asks about just a single user. A chat list shows, say, 30 contacts at once, so we need batched reads. A single request, like a GET to a user's status endpoint with a list of IDs, beats 30 separate round trips every single time. The query shapes the storage. Next, we apply a really cool concept I like to call the framework of opposites. Do we push or pull? If the server pulls, it has to constantly ask every client, hey, are you there? Which requires a persistent connection. If the client pushes, it just emits a post heartbeat over plain HTTP. On day zero, push definitely wins. Think of push like a kid calling home from summer camp to say they're okay. Pull is the parent calling the kid's payphone every hour. At scale, the child checking in is just so much more efficient because of connectivity asymmetry. Clients can always reach servers, but servers usually can't reach mobile clients behind firewalls. Okay, let's build on that and see how this translates into the heartbeat protocol, where our clients are pulsing every few seconds. This brings us to the absolute killer insight of the entire design. Get this, we don't actually store in offline state. Offline is simply a state we infer when we haven't received a heartbeat in, say, 30 seconds. This flip, liveness via absence, is one of the most reused patterns in distributed systems. It's the exact same logic behind TCP keep alives and Cassandra gossip. But what do senior engineers catch when implementing this? A few critical things. You absolutely must enforce item potency for out-of-order beats. And more importantly, you have to account for clock skew. Never, ever trust a client's clock for a timestamp. A buggy client could literally claim to have been online forever. Always use server time. You also have to acknowledge false offlines during network partitions. These are the gritty details that separate a really robust sketch from a fragile one. Let's transition over to scaling and see what happens to our naive sketch when we hit massive scale constraints. Time for some quick back-of-the-envelope math. Storing a tiny 8-byte timestamp entry for 1 billion registered users equals roughly 8 gigabytes of pure payload. And if you factor in metadata overhead in a system like Redis, that inflates to anywhere from 80 to 120 gigabytes. That is an insanely expensive amount of memory just to track who happens to be online. So let's bring back that framework of opposites again. The opposite of store everyone is store no one. Well, actually, only store the active users. In a given 30-second window, maybe only 1% of your users are online. If we only store the active users, we drop from 8 gigabytes all the way down to 800 kilobytes. It's a 10,000 times storage win. I love this analogy. A nightclub doesn't keep a permanent ledger of everyone inside. They just give you a wristband that falls off after a few hours. No wristband, you're not inside. That's sparse storage in a nutshell. But wait, how do we clean up the data for people who go offline? Do we run a clunky manual cron job that sweeps the database every minute? No way. A cron job makes you the gardener, and it will absolutely fail under load, creating these massive, thundering herds. Instead, we use a native data store TTL, or time to live. You let the data store be the gardener. When a heartbeat comes in, you set the key with a 30-second TTL. If it doesn't get refreshed, the database just quietly deletes it automatically. So which data store is the winner here? The shortlist usually comes down to Redis versus DynamoDB. And here's the secret. There is no objectively correct choice. It is entirely a context-driven decision. If you have a dedicated ops team, you need sub-millisecond latency for chat lists, and you want to avoid vendor lock-in, Redis is phenomenal. But if you have a small startup team, want zero operational burden, and are already deep in the AWS ecosystem, DynamoDB's managed TTL is absolutely the way to go. You have to evaluate based on your specific engineering context. Now, at this point, I know some of you might be screaming at the screen, what about WebSockets? And yeah, it's true. Real chat systems eventually use WebSockets for persistent, real-time, bidirectional messaging. The OpenSocket itself proves liveness. But WebSockets are incredibly expensive to keep idle, they really complicate load balancing, and they destroy the statelessness of your API tier. They are eventually right, for sure, but they are a massive premature mistake on day one. Stick to HTTP heartbeats until your product actually demands real-time push delivery. Let's talk about the real database bottleneck, though. 1 million active users sending a heartbeat every 10 seconds generates 100,000 writes per second. If every single heartbeat opens a new TCP connection, those TLS handshakes are going to consume 75% of your latency budget. The solution? Connection pooling. You basically treat the pool as a bounded blocking queue. You acquire a pre-established connection, use it, and release it back. This bounds concurrency protects your data store from crazy traffic spikes and drops query latency to roughly 1 millisecond. It's absolute magic. All right, finally, let's explore our last section. Because a system design is fundamentally incomplete if you don't acknowledge exactly how it's going to break. Imagine a celebrity user logs on and 1 million people instantly view their profile. You get a hotkey that basically melts a single Redis node. You need client-side caching to mitigate that. What if the data store saturates? You need aggressive pool acquire timeouts and load shedding. You must define service-level objectives like ensuring your P99 heartbeat write latency stays under 100 milliseconds. And always have a rollback strategy, like feature flagging the new heartbeat path before deploying it to 100% of your users. Just look at the incredible reusable pattern library we've built today. Push-based liveness, inference via absence, sparse storage with automated TTLs, connection pooling via bounded blocking queues, and of course, the framework of opposites. These are just cool tricks for a green dot. These are the literal Lego blocks for any modern, scalable, distributed backend. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Think about the last system you designed. Did you explicitly name the alternative and force yourself to defend rejecting it? How will you apply the framework of opposites to your next architectural sketch? Challenge your defaults, sketch before you template, and keep building amazing things. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.